Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 141 of the Everything Moto Racing podcast. I am your host, Declan, as always, with Lauren.
Hello.
Hello, and Cameron has ditched us.
Well, no, you can't say that. The man's not well.
He's not well, in inverted commas.
Yeah, well, we don't actually know what's wrong with him, but he says he's not doing good, so...
Yeah, he was spent the day being too sick, too cool, and that's why he can't come on, because he's over-sicked himself.
Yeah, well, hope he gets better soon. He'll have to edit this anyway, so have to be nice.
Yeah, get well soon, Cameron. Anyway, moving on. It's been a interesting week in MotoGP, shall we say?
Yeah.
Last week, it went from Mugello, pretty mid-test, nothing really happened. So then suddenly, Martin getting confirmed at Aprilia, and everyone going, wait, does that mean Marc Marquez? And then it's like, yeah, but all these sponsors, like even myself included, all these sponsors that are going to have to get like sorted out. And then the next morning, Marc Marquez uploads a photo of himself on his Instagram story in a Red Bull cap, an Oakley t-shirt that says factory pilot on it. And we're like, And then a bit later on, Ducati tweet on Twitter to go like, what's going on here? And then a bit later on, they announced that Marc Marquez will ride for the factory Ducati squad next year in MotoGP. Mental.
Yeah, I mean, we did sort of suspect it was coming since it was broken to the news and Autosport had reported on it. Then obviously we got the confirmation that Jorge Martin was leaving Ducati altogether, so I suppose it was only a matter of time until they confirmed Marc Marquez. I know there was maybe a little bit of a chance that they were going to maybe keep Enea Bastianini, but even they sort of said, I think it was like a really minimal chance that they were going to keep him. So I think it definitely was between Martin and Marquez. So with the confirmation of Martin, we sort of were like, right, well, when's this going to happen then? I wasn't expecting it to be the day after.
No.
I was maybe thinking...
Autosport sped all that up.
Yeah, I was maybe thinking like a couple of weeks or, I don't know, before the summer break or maybe even after the summer break. Like, don't know why they've just decided on a Monday and Tuesday, like randomly, to drop all of this news.
The biggest news.
Yeah, so early in the season. No, it's just like, I know there's still so much to be confirmed and so many seats that are still open for 2025, but like that's the big one.
That is the big one. That's like the coveted seat in it, the one that everybody wants.
Yeah.
The fact that so many riders were trying to get it. And of course, it makes sense that Marc Marquez gets it over Jorge Martin. But there are definitely pros and cons to both riders.
Yeah.
Jorge Martin has age and youth on his side. He's also leading the championship. He looks really good at the moment on that Ducati. He's also been very well. He was obviously battling Francesco Bagnaia until Valencia last year. Can't get my words out. My brain's thinking too fast. In the last 2 years, Martin has put up a consistent fight for the championship, is what I'm trying to say. No matter what bike he's put on, the 23 was drastically different to the 24, and Martin is still able to fight at the front and lead the championship. Marc Marquez, on the other hand, is a bit older. He is going to be 33 when this Ducati deal ends, and he is an 8-time world champion. But he's on last year's bike. But he's impressing. He's riding very well on a bike with not many upgrades at all, to be honest. And that's really impressive. He also holds the marketing skills and needs that... Marketing prowess is the best word that Ducati need. If Ducati want to sell a lot of motorbikes, having Jorge Martin on the bike isn't going to sell anywhere near as many as having Marc Marquez on it will.
Yeah.
And they sell those replica bikes every year. And if one's got a 93 slapped on the front of it, it's going to sell a few, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I still see Repsol Hondas with 93s on them.
Yeah, and 26 is about as well. Yeah, that's
there's a
it.
few.
Exactly. So Marc Marquez makes sense on that, and at the end of the day, he's still performing incredibly well and at an incredibly high level, despite being on last year's bike. We will now see a switch, I think, as Martin, the upgrades he was getting are phased out because he's obviously not riding for Ducati anymore, and will take whatever knowledge he has over to Aprilia with him. Whereas Marquez will now start to see some upgrades, like when Enea Bastianini signed for the Ducati squad. He received a lot more upgrades. He didn't receive a new engine or chassis, I don't think, but he received a lot of upgrades, more upgrades than he was expecting to receive, and that helped him to be even faster as the races go on. So now that Marquez is in that factory squad, his little bone stock GP23 should become maybe a GP23.5 as it gets upgraded across the season, meaning we could see him win a race very soon.
I mean, we're going to Assen next. Sorry, I thought it was Sachsenring first. But I think those two circuits will probably favour Marquez. Sachsenring, obviously, more than Assen. I'd be really surprised if he didn't win in Germany, to be honest. I mean,
Same.
We had the chance in America. He hadn't fully gelled with the bike yet. Understandable that he didn't win that one.
He had a technical issue as well that caused him to crash.
So, sort of makes sense. But, in the last couple race weekends, we've seen it. He had bad qualifying, still managed to finish P2 4 times in a row. And then in Mugello, got qualifying sorted out and actually managed to start sort of up the grid. I think he was started fourth in the sprint and third in the main race because of Pecco's penalty. So he's making the right steps. I think it is genuinely a matter of time until he wins a race on the 23 bike as it is. But obviously now with the confirmation that he's staying with Ducati, going to the factory squad, they will want him to be as up to date as he possibly can be, so that the transition to the factory squad next year will be as seamless as possible.
That's it. And it's only going to help Marc in the coming races with the confidence of next year sorted out and things like that as well. He is rumoured to be getting paid more than Bagnaia.
Oh.
Again, rumour, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about sponsorship last week, and I know a few people are sort of saying, what does it matter? I actually seen quite a few tweets about that throughout the week.
Yeah, I saw some top journalists tweet about it after I made my post, and I was like,
what are we talking about sponsorship for? And it's like, well, we've got 3 weeks off between racing. The confirmation of, the biggest two riders in MotoGP at the minute going, making shock moves. Of course we're going to talk about it. What else is there to talk about? We're going to pick out every single little detail in this transaction, because literally what else would we talk about in the next 3 weeks of no racing? In MotoGP, that is. Obviously, there's been other racing, but, and
at the time, he wasn't confirmed.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I think sponsorship is... I've become more interested in it, in these bigger moves, because there's a lot that goes into it. And for someone like Marc Marquez, who has been Red Bull through and through his whole career, obviously these sorts of questions are going to come to your mind. And yes, Jack Miller rode Red Bull, whatever, when he rode the Ducati, but I don't know, there's just a difference. I don't get why people are being panicky about it. Surely the fact that people are talking about the sport and talking about the move is a good thing, and can only be a good thing. And
the Jack Miller argument confuses me a bit, because Jack Miller ran Red Bull in Ducati, so did Dovi. But that was before Ducati signed a sponsorship agreement for 2023, 2024, 2025 with Monster Energy. Therefore, of course he can ride Red Bull with Monster Energy, because they weren't sponsored. But then Enea, who was a Red Bull athlete, joined the team, did the Valencia test with a Red Bull helmet on as well. But then all his social posts for the weeks after contained zero sign of a Red Bull logo, and then it was rumoured that Monster Energy had signed with Ducati, like they have with McLaren and F1, for example, and like they did with Suzuki. There was rumours that had happened. And Enea wasn't showing Red Bull anymore. And then we got the livery that came out, and there was a Monster Energy logo slapped across their chests and on their helmets because the team were now sponsored by Monster Energy. That's why now Nicolo Balega, Adrian Huertas, and what's his name? Alvaro Bautista, casually just forgetting the name of the three-time world superbike champion. Why they all have Monster Energy logos. But to add an additional point to that, Alvaro Bautista, at the start of the season, they often have, when you see the Monster Energy logos on the helmets, they have ones on the back of your head to the side and then across the chin piece. Bautista ran it on the back of his head and that was it. The same as Pecco, same as Enea. None on the chin piece. And then a few races in, Monster Energy said that no, you have to run it on the chin piece as well. And that Bautista had to change his helmet design to run it on the chin piece as well. Meaning that Monster Energy have some leeway with riders, with their helmets, and what they can do and the riders' helmet designs because of that sponsorship agreement. So then, when we go back onto Marc Marquez and him signing and racing for Ducati, he's been a Red Bull athlete since he was 15 years old, since 2007. And of course it's going to be a big talking point because it's like Red Bull they sponsor this SMX stuff and the motocross stuff, you know. Antonio Caroli was a Red Bull athlete for donkey's years. He then retired as a racer and then left KTM in October and wasn't a Red Bull athlete anymore. At that point, that's the sponsorship ended, and he was a free agent. And then he joined Monster Energy in the January when he was signed with Ducati. So the changes can happen, and Marquez's Red Bull contract might end at the end of this year, for example, meaning that, yes, he could just join Monster Energy seamlessly next year, but maybe he's in a 10-year deal with Red Bull. You know, he's one of their most highest paid sponsored athletes, therefore there might be a massive thing that's like, actually, no, you can't leave his contract. And it might be because of the way these work, Marc Marquez might be getting paid more to run a Red Bull logos on his helmet than what Ducati are paying. No, Monster Energy are paying Ducati to show their logos. But in addition to that, Marc Marquez may be able to use that leverage within Red Bull and the leverage he has over Ducati of trying to get, because they desperately wanted him, to either get them to drop the sponsorship or at least run the sponsorship with one bike and not the other. And I mean, on all the confirmation posts and stuff of Marc, he's not wearing a Red Bull cap. But that is because they're sponsored by Monster Energy, and therefore he can't wear a Red Bull cap. At the Valencia test at the end of this year, he will not wear a Red Bull helmet because they're sponsored by Monster Energy, and he won't be allowed to. Whether next year he will continue with a Red Bull, it remains to be seen. But there are ways around it, and Red Bull would be able to buy Ducati out of their Monster Energy contract if it meant it was the thing that was stopping Marc for signing for Ducati. And then the other way, Marquez could have gone, you know what, I want this seat more than I want to have this long-term partnership. We can pause this relationship for 2 years and come back to it after I've spent 2 years on Ducati.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty fair. I think sponsorships are a good way for people to sort of feel really involved in the sport. Like, I'm not very good at the technical side of a motorbike. I don't understand fully how the bikes are put together, the aero, all that. I have a very basic understanding. So I think that's why a lot of people care about sponsorships, and that has become a much bigger thing because it's so much easier for people to have discussions about and be able to sort of talk about the ins and outs of it because it's a bit easier. It's not so scientific and hard to wrap your head around. You don't need to have a big knowledge in how a bike works. It's more just, you know, more people may know about, you know, doing deals and stuff like that. So it's another sort of feather to the bow sort of thing.
Yeah.
Of people that can, it's another discussion and conversation that can be had. So, yeah, it's interesting, that one. And I'm excited to see what happens. Like, I think that's just another thing to look forward to be like, what's all these, like, weird details going to be? Some people, yeah, it might not matter, but yeah.
Yeah, sponsorship is interesting. I mean, I run a page on Instagram called Moto Racing Gear. I talk about the riders' helmet brands and their suits and their gloves and their boots and their sponsorship with energy drinks and stuff. And I've got 5,000 people following it. So people are interested in it. That post I made about Marquez, when Marquez was like, oh, Will, this is the sponsors he needs to change to go over to Ducati, has 25,000 likes on Instagram at the moment. Like, people do care. But...
Yeah, literally. But, I don't know. I think it still surprised me that Marquez is signed for Ducati, though. Like, I still can't really wrap my head, the factory team that is, that he's going to go there next season. Like, I'm still shocked.
Weird. I mean, was it 2-3 years ago they said, yeah, we'd never sign Marc Marquez? They're like, no, he's not. He doesn't fit into our plans, shall they say. But I think when he signed that Grassini deal, hopped on their bike and they saw his data and saw how he rides a motorbike. Something in that data has made them go, we need you in our factory bike now and nowhere else.
Do you think he planned it to perfection? Because all these little signs throughout the year, like at the start of the year, they had to write those like 2 truths and a lie. And one of them was, I have a plan. Now, I think that's very maybe clutching at straws from us being like, oh, do that. But the more I sort of think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, it makes so much sense. I think he's like master plans this move to perfection.
He is the master of
mind games.
Yeah. I mean, he beat Valentino Rossi at his own game and caused Valentino Rossi, who was the king of mind games, to crumble. He knows what he's doing, and I think he's already kind of gotten under Pecco's skin a little bit there, which is good. He managed to get Jorge Martin out of Ducati so he could get in there. The question now is, Ducati want a world championship out of him now next year, if not this year. Can he do it? Is the question. I think he can.
I'm very 50-50 on this.
Well, it is yes or no, so it's 50-50, I guess.
Yeah. I'm swaying more towards yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
I do think he can, but I think there'll be a lot of politics. Pecco said he wanted to keep Enea Bastianini as a teammate. He said the same thing a couple of years ago when he wanted to keep Jack Miller. He likes having teammates that don't cause problems. Jorge Martin, very outspoken. Marc Marquez, very outspoken. You know, I think it's going to cause a bit of friction, no matter who it ended up being.
There's already friction between Pecco and Marc anyway because of the whole crash at the earlier this year.
Yeah,
you got to remember Pecco is a VR46 Riders Academy rider, so he's got a very close relationship with Valentino Rossi, who isn't exactly Marc Marquez's best friend. So there will be some kind of, I think Pecco even posted a Wisto con Vale back in 2015 as well, when the whole chaos happened. So Pecco is very much in the Valentino Rossi camp, meaning Marc Marquez isn't exactly going to be his best mate. Pecco will have a lot of motivation to beat Marc Marquez because it's a case of, oh yeah, I've beat Marc Marquez to the championship, but it's people going, yeah, but he was on a Honda.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Oh, I've beaten Marc Marquez still. Yeah, but he's on last year's bike. Next year, it's I'm beating Marc Marquez and we're on the same bike in the same colours. And that will be so motivating for Pecco. But I think Marc, knowing that he has the tools at his disposal, having the confidence there, because with Honda, he could ride around the bike and the way he rode that Honda was incredible. He rode around all the issues. 2015, he could have ridden around the issues, but his lack of experience meant that he couldn't, and he crashed out so much. But then you saw in 2019 when the bike was an absolute pig and he finished first or second every race barring Kota when it was a crash. He demolished everybody. And then he goes on to the Gresini Ducati and he then has a confidence of, oh, actually, this is a good bike. I can ride this bike. And he is. And he's not only doing that, he's riding it in a way that none of the other Ducatis have ever ridden the Ducati before. And so then translate that into going from last year's bike to the bike that is the current bike and is currently being developed and has all the money going into it in the factory squad. And he can adjust and adapt the bike however the hell he likes because he's a factory rider. I don't see a world where, barring injury, he doesn't finish in the top 2 of the championship.
Oh, yeah, top 2, definitely. I think now the question mark will go over of his age. 31 is not old. He'll be 32 at the start of next season. We have seen riders, I mean, Alicia Sparger is what, like 35, 36?
33, I think he is.
Oh, goodness, putting years on him. Never mind. Well, Valentino Rossi, even prime example. Road to League was 42. Still races cars. Well. And he's, just goes to show. But I think his age is one thing. I think that injury now can be completely wiped away, I think. I think now, looking at him, he looks pretty full fitness. He still performs better in the left-hand corners than he does the right-hand corners, but I think I think he's adapted to that now. The anti-clockwise circuits always suit him better anyway. That was pre-injury as well.
Yeah, because he grew up on dirt track and he's turning left.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks in that sense, but it'll be interesting now to see him full fitness, full confidence on best bike on the grid. Does Pecco have enough to start playing these mind games? We know he's fast. We know he's good. He's got 2 world championships in MotoGP. I don't think he's been in a full-blown, outright battle for it. I think Jorge Martin probably was the closest to a battle last season. Jorge Martin is obviously going to have a lot to prove at Aprilia as well, making that move, showing everyone that it was the right idea and making that work and getting them consistent enough to put up a championship charge. I'd really like to see an actual on-track battle between those guys and make it work. Then I think we'd be able to see whether or not Marc Marquez is like full Marc Marquez again.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is, will he or won't he? We don't know, but it's going to be a different year next year for sure.
Yeah.
There's so many different variables in it. Martin could win the number 1 plate from Pecco this year, take it to Aprilia. Then suddenly Martin's desperate to try and retain that number 1. Pecco's suddenly got extra motivation to get that number 1 plate back. He's also got another teammate. But the main thing I wanted to talk about as well is, I said this 2 years ago, is that second Ducati seat is cursed. Doesn't matter who rides it, it is cursed. We saw Enea Bastianini absolutely destroy everybody and finish 3rd in the world on a year-old bike, step on that factory bike, and look at him now. And he was injured because it's cursed.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, that one, actually. I think also we could throw Pedro Costa in the mix for next year's championship fight too.
Yeah, 100%.
Which will create a bit of spice. But I think what this season is missing so far is the actual on-track action. I don't think we've seen enough battles. Now, we've seen a few, and we've seen good overtakes, especially from the likes of Marc Marquez when it's qualifying. So bad he has to come from bloody 14th and 13th on the grid. But what would make next year's championship perfection? Like, all the moves so far, brilliant. It's lining up to be great. But if we can get like proper battling on track as well, week in, week out. It's going to be the most exciting championship season we've probably ever had, if all of this can fall into place, including close racing.
I think it's been exceptional so far this year. It's been the odd race that's like, meh, but it has been really, really good this year. And I'm really looking forward to next year, but we kind of got to still focus on this year. But I mean, moving off Marc Marquez, because it isn't the Marquez pod, onto Martin. How do you think he will adapt to the Aprilia wheel? And the big question mark is Aprilia have never had a top rider. Vinales is an exceptional rider. He's not a top rider. Was meant to be, had the potential to be, but hasn't really done that. Now they've got Martin, who is a proven top rider. Is it going to be a case of actually the Aprilia is really good, potentially better than the Ducati? Or is it going to be a case of the same things happening with Aprilia?
I think you can break it into two parts. I think Aprilia need to make sure that the bike is more consistent, which it seems to be getting somewhat better, but Maverick and Elise, I don't know if they're the riders to get the full potential out of the bike at the minute, so we're really not sure on that. So still, Aprilia need to be consistent next year and make sure that there's not silly little issues with the bikes, which we have still seen this year, where there's been issues, technical problems. They need to rule that out. Then, obviously, looking at Jorge Martin, we've only ever seen him on a Ducati in MotoGP, and we had this conversation on the podcast not too long ago of talent. He's an exceptionally fast rider. He is very talented, but is the Ducati masking that? Sounds horrible, but it's a genuine, we don't know. We don't know if he goes to Aprilia. Will he be completely unbeatable? Will it all fit into place, or will it turn out the exact same as what's happening this year, where 1 week they're fast and then the next week nowhere to be seen? Maverick Vinales qualified second in Mugello. No, third.
I can't remember.
Third?
I'll find it.
Can't remember. He was on the front row anyway.
Yeah.
And then ended like sixth, and it's like, that's just not good enough. You've had one race weekend where all of a sudden everyone was like, oh my god, he's back, this is it, championship charge is on, and that completely disappeared. That could happen to Jorge Martin. We just don't know. I think, without sounding really horrible and like I'm against him, Ducati probably masks a lot of performance issues.
Yeah, and Vinales was third as well, yeah. Well, you look back, when was it? 2021 or something, where it was like every rider who came in on a Ducati as a rookie is still in MotoGP, and every rider that didn't come in on Ducati MotoGP is
that
either
was
out of MotoGP,
what we'd spoke about,
or struggling, yeah. And it's just wild that it's, like we say, has the Ducati masked it? You know, it's easy to, not easy, but you're at a bit of an advantage if you hop onto the best bike in MotoGP and the most user-friendly bike in MotoGP, and then can have your maybe lack of abilities compared with another rider on a different bike made up for in the performance of the bike. If you're at 40% as a rider and that bike gives you an extra 20%, and there's another rider who's at 50% as a rider but only gets 10% out of the bike, you are both on level pegging, despite one being a more talented rider. And so that is a genuine thing with Martin of is going from the best bike on the grid to one of the best bikes on the grid into a B bike, as I like to call it. A bike being Ducati, B bike being KTM and Aprilia. Going on to that bike that's not as dominant, not as consistent. Because you've got to remember, Ducati have been on the podium, I think, for the last 60 odd races now. Something like that. Consistently, there's been a Ducati on the podium. Whereas Aprilia don't have anywhere near that record. You know, can he then be that consistent rider on the podium all that time? Or is it a case of, like with Aleix and Vinales, up and down every week? I think Martin has got what it takes to do that and be that consistent rider. And I think he will be the standout and actually be proved to everybody that the Aprilia is a very good package with the right rider, but they don't have the budget either, because Martin was offered more money from a different factory to go there, but then chose Aprilia. Maybe because of Aleix.
I'd say so.
Aleix even said that Martin would be as idle if he went and stepped on the Aprilia, his baby, and went and just absolutely excelled on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he obviously went to Aprilia because of Aleix. The guys are like family, and it totally makes sense. But I think it's hard to look at any of the Ducati riders at the minute and go, yeah, they're going to perform really well on XYZ bike, because we just don't know. Because we haven't seen anything different. Like,
no.
Marc Marquez going to Ducati, the fact that people were like, oh, don't think that's going to go down well. Because previous times when we've seen, you know, the high-flying people, Lorenzo, Valentino Rossi, go to Ducati, it didn't really work out for them. But Ducati isn't the same as what they are now. So I'm quite surprised that people were like, don't think Marc Marquez and Ducati are going to get on, and now he's bloody riding for them next year. Whereas on the other hand, all the Ducati riders who are there at the minute, yeah, it's hard to decide whether or not they're going to be good next year, because we don't know any different.
And the crazy thing is that Ducati have gone and got rid of Martin and Bastianini.
Yeah.
Two of the biggest talents coming to MotoGP in recent years, for an older, shall we say, 8-time world champion. That is mental.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. They've been a bit cutthroat before.
They are savage, Ducati are.
Yeah, I think it does make sense though, because when you look at it, Marc Marquez, he's got a 2-year contract. At the end of it, he's 33. New regulations come in also at the end of the contract. He wants to retire. He wants to retire. He maybe wins another championship, wins another 2, you know, breaks Rossi's record. He might go, do you know what? I've had enough now. Or he'll keep going. But yeah, it makes sense. I think if he does this, wins the championship, retires, that then will open up a spot for, say, one of the younger
Fermin
riders, Fermin Aldeguer, basically, because now Jorge Martin and Enea are both gone. Jack Miller's gone. I don't really see anyone else in their ranks at the minute who's still there that they would promote up to the factory seat.
Bezzecchi, if he can be last year's Bezzecchi, maybe.
Digia looks better than Bezzecchi at the minute.
Digia is actually beating Bezzecchi in the championship.
Easy. He looks so good recently.
He looks so good, Digia. He's consistent, he's fast. And I'd sign him for next year if I was VR46. Maybe try and get him actually as a VR46 Academy rider membership, because he's not one of those guys at the moment. And the thing is, that's the tricky part for Digia, because he may end up at Goscinny again next year, because if for whatever reason Pramac do go to Yamaha, Frankie's not going to ride for Pramac. There's nowhere in hell he'll leave factory Yamaha for a Ducati and then ride for Yamaha again next year. No way.
No.
What would happen is VR46 would get rid of Digia and give Frankie a seat. And then Digia, would probably end up back at Goscinny, which would be quite a funny little game of musical chairs.
Yeah.
But then Fermin, if there's 6... But Ducati have then said, because I was going to say, if there's 6 Ducati slots, where does anyone go? Alex Marquez has been doing well, and I think he does deserve a seat if he can maybe get another win or 2 in the sprint races. But Ducati have said there will be 8 bikes on the grid next year. So which team gives up and signs for Ducati? LCR maybe? No idea. Absolutely no clue. Trackhouse? Doubt it. No clue. But Fermin is a big question of where on earth does he go, especially if Pramac pull out of Ducati.
I'm still of the opinion after last week's podcast episode that I don't think Fermin is in any way ready to move up.
He's not.
Which, there's a bit of a spanner in the works, but To be fair, if Pramac stays, it will be Pramac. Because I don't see him fitting in at any of the other Ducati teams. It does, like, none of the rest of them make sense to me. He's not going to go to VR46. He's not going to go to Gresini. So in my head, it would have to be Pramac.
You'd think so. But if Pramac leave...
If Pramac leave, it'll be Gresini.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they are sort of next in the pecking order of Ducatis, with VR46 sort of being in 4th place at the minute, based on this year's results, I'd say.
Yeah, on this year's results. Yeah, because last year it'd be the other way around.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if I had to make a choice, obviously it would be Pramac. If Pramac leave, it'll be Gresini. And then that'll be that.
And then Digia's once again left without a seat.
I'd so keep Digia. I'd so keep him. In an ideal world, Pramac would stay where they are, and I'd actually put Digia and Fermin in the squad.
Yeah, I wouldn't go against that.
Based on performances. I'd put Frankie with
Bez.
Just VR46 makes more sense to keep those guys together. And then Gresini, I'd keep Alex Marquez and maybe bring someone else in.
Jack Miller?
No.
Jack Miller's not bothered about where he goes, which is good, but Jack Miller's results also don't warrant a MotoGP seat.
Yeah.
At the moment.
At the minute, if it was up to me, I would not be signing Jack Miller.
No.
In any seat.
And that's the thing, maybe for Augusto Fernandez could have a shot there, Gresini potentially, but Enea Bastianini is all but confirmed to go to Gas. Well, not Gas, because I don't believe it will be Gas next year, but Tech 3 KTM, which is a very good move, I think. And again, it brings us back to that thing of, is the Ducati masking his talent? I don't think it is. He's a Moto2 world champion. He was exceptional in Moto3 as well for many years.
Yeah.
He's a top. Martin again. I would say Enea Bastianini is more talented than Jorge Martin. Controversial, I know.
No, I'd agree.
But I would say as well, good. But I would say again, it's not by much. Maybe 3%. Jorge Martin, I don't think the Ducati's masking his talent. I genuinely don't think his talent's being masked by the bike. Enea Bastianini, I think, is definitely not being masked by the bike in the slightest, I think. Enea could do a Pedro Acosta on the Tech 3.
Yeah, I think as well, because we've seen Enea Bastianini on a few different Ducatis, whereas we've only ever seen Jorge Martin in Pramac.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly, Enea did it on a year-old bike.
Yeah.
Won 3 races on it.
Yeah, so he was always with Gresini.
He was at the...
Avintia, first year.
Then he was at Gresini.
Yeah. So he's been on, yes, albeit Ducatis, but Ducatis that were nowhere up to speed and managed to do what he did. So, yeah, I think both are very talented. I would say Enea Bastianini is more talented than Jorge Martin. I think the difference between the two of them at the minute is confidence.
Yeah.
Jorge Martin has had that great run and has got himself to the front, unlocked the potential, and he's there now. He will stay there for the rest of the season. I don't think Enea has ever showed as much consistency.
Only in 2019. No, 2019. In what year was it? My years getting mixed up. 2022. Only in 2022 was he that consistent. We got 3rd in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, the year he was with Gresini was his best year.
But even then, he wasn't that consistent.
No.
He was not that consistent. You go back and it was some wins and stuff, but then he would also have some results where he was like low 10s.
Yeah.
And maybe even in the teens. And it was a strange one, but then he showed that he had the ability to fight at the front when he needed it. Didn't have that consistency. And then we thought about him maybe going to factory Ducati and having that consistency. And then the very first sprint race of the year, he gets injured and it just knackers the whole thing. And his confidence is shot. He wins at Sepang and he's like 10th the weekend after, something like that. And you're like, God damn.
Well, just even his move on Jorge Martin at Mugello, you can see that it's there. I do genuinely think it's like a confidence thing. They haven't worked it out. It's not there. They can't show up week in, week out and do what, say, Pecco's doing, do what Jorge Martin is doing, do now what Marc Marquez is doing, where you can sort of see the rhythm of they can show up at any racetrack and make it work.
Yeah. Whereas I think maybe on the KTM he would actually hilariously switch back to Red Bull at KTM as well. And for those who actually do care about energy drink sponsorships, he was going Fun Energy, and then he jumped into Red Bull for a few years at Gresini. Then he switched to Estrella Galicia and was Monster Energy. Then he was Leopard for a few years. Won the Moto2 World Championship with Leopard, but didn't have it on his helmet. Went to MotoGP, back with Red Bull, and now he's with Monster Energy, and then we'll go back with Red Bull at Tech 3.
Mind-boggling, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think that KTM is good for Enea.
I think
Genuinely.
that KTM is a lot better than what Augusto Fernandez is making it look out to be, because Pedro Costa is doing mad things on that. Now, he is a rookie. He has made mistakes. We can't tell with Pedro Costa how good the bike actually is, but I think if we had someone like Enea Bastianini, we could realise. I think that bike, with the right rider on it, is top 10 every weekend.
Yeah, 100,000%. And it's typical because Brad is such a good rider, but Brad Binder again is quite inconsistent, same as Pedro Costa.
He's not having a good run of it at the minute. None of the KTMs are. Pedro's the best performing KTM, and like I said, as a rookie, we cannot put anything on him because he needs to make these mistakes to learn and to be better for next season. He needs to get that experience. But the other three guys, yes, Augusto Fernandez is also relatively new, but he's nowhere. But the other guys, Jack and Brad in particular, are making silly mistakes. But it's all
Brad's crashing his brains out at the moment.
Yeah, but it's all the feeling of the bike. Jack's been mentioning it for a while, and now all of a sudden it's happening to Brad too. Pedro says he has the same problem, but is able to ride around it somehow.
Yeah, when Danny Pedrosa steps on it, he's very fast on it as well.
Yeah. Explain that.
I think it goes back to the whole thing again. This is going to get me hate, and I know it is. The Aprilia conundrum of not having a top rider on the bike. Brad Binder is an exceptional rider, much like Vinales. Is he a top rider? We did say on the pod a little while ago, yeah, he could probably get second place at any track on the grid, or any track on the calendar. Yeah, he definitely could. But will he? No. Could Pedro Acosta? Likely.
Yes, yeah.
Could Enea Bastianini, who again I would say is more talented than all of them barring Pedro? I'd say so. So it goes back to that thing of until we've got an exceptional rider, not just an A class rider, but like an absolute world beater, alien level rider, like Pedro Costa on the bike, like Danny Pedrosa, who's an actual alien. You won't know how good that bike is, and Pedro Costa's proving actually how good that bike is with the right rider on it. Having Enea in there could do the same thing, because Enea is a step above an A-class rider, but not an alien. He's in that little category there. And like an A-star rider, shall we say. And so Enea and Pedro together, I think, could do very well. Obviously, Pedro's in the factory team, but together on the same bike could do a lot of good things next year. Because, again, controversial, I think both of them are more talented than Binder and Miller.
That's just giving me an idea of that we should sit down one day and do proper rankings
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
of all because every week in, week out, we always go, oh, might be a bit, oh, don't know,
Yeah.
this one might be a bit controversial, don't know if people will agree with me, sort of thing. Yeah, we should do that. That's just giving me the best idea.
We should do it next weekend because there's not much racing on.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of World Superbikes and BSP.
There is. That's true. We've just had the TT.
Yeah, which was exciting too.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I think it's all coming down to confidence to finish up that point that you were talking about. Confidence and consistency go hand in hand in MotoGP, and you can tell when a rider isn't confident in the bike, in the project, in the plan, it doesn't go down well. You need to be so in tune with your bike, and if you're not, the results don't come. I think you can use Fabio Quartararo as an example with the Yamaha. He rode around the problems for so long until it literally became the point of he couldn't. And using examples of top riders on the grid, we always say that Fabio is one of the ones that we'd put very, very high up. Got to the stage where he couldn't ride around the problems anymore. This is, sort of what happens. So the confidence goes, you start questioning your ability, questioning the people around you, and then it doesn't work. Whereas you need to be so in tune, and then say, using Marc Marquez and Frankie Carchetti as an example, when it works and when you're so in tune with your team and your crew chief, the confidence comes, the results come, and boom. I want him to take him to the factory squad next year too. What a gig that would be.
I think he will. Frankie Cargetti is a Ducati employee. So he'd just follow Mark, I think.
I think he should.
Yeah, I
Frankie,
don't see
if you're
why.
listening.
Yeah,
please go.
It'd be against Ducati's best interests to not put Frankie in the factory team with Mark. They've gelled together so well already.
So
it makes sense for them to do that. Like I said, it'd be a dumb move not to put Frankie in there. But yeah, I think Martin very much has the chance to win Aprilia their first title. If he can win the title this year, I think that alone will cement him as a top 3 in the world rider next year for sure.
Yeah.
Enea Bastianini, again, I think could do exceptionally well on that KTM. Again, KTM, because I put it into the same bracket as Aprilia earlier, I think it's a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
Like Jerez last year, and we had Miller and Binder on the podium, and the week after, again, it was not really doing much. Binder was on the podium in the opening round this season, and then he's just not that he's not been nowhere, but he's not been on the podium consistently. We've had lockouts of Marquez, Martin, and Bagnaia, and Binder's not been anywhere near that.
Yeah, I think actually you're saying Enea Bastianini could do well. I think if he goes to whatever KTM call the team, we'll say Tech 3, as we have been all episode, I think he has the possibility of outperforming Brad Binder. And then that puts a very sticky conundrum for KTM to try and sort out.
Yeah, because I went into the whole point earlier about having an A-star rider like Enea on the bike. And if you want to weed out who's cutting the mustard and who's not on your bike, and if it is the bike or if it's not, have 2 very good riders, Pedro and Enea, on the bike. And if they are performing and the other 2 aren't, you know what the issue is.
Yeah.
And Brad's an exceptional rider, and that's nothing against Brad, because like I said, I think if you had Brad and a Ducati, he would stomp the floor with everyone. If you give Brad a bike that isn't inconsistent and is a Ducati, Brad would be top 3, top 1 maybe every weekend.
Well, this is the thing. We've had the conversation so many times as well of if we put everyone on that factory Ducati, I think you'd be very surprised by who would come out on top. I don't think it would be Pecco Bagnaia, who is number 1 on the number 1 bike. It would not be.
No, I'd put Pecco like 10th, if I'm honest, in that race.
people are going to be like, oh, well, not everyone has the same experience, so obviously it's going to be Pecco Bagnaia. But no,
Yeah.
right, dream world scenario. Everyone understands how the Ducati works, and it's all a match made in heaven. Yeah, Pecco would not be as high up the order as a lot of people would maybe think.
No, Pecco is an exceptional rider. He's a 3-time world champion for a reason.
Take a shot every time you say exceptional.
Yeah, literally. Bingo card. But he is a very, very, very good rider. And what sets Pecco aside from other riders and why he's a multi-world champion is because what he may lack in outright speed and talent, which on his day he is unstoppable, as we saw in Mugello, he gains and excels over other riders in his ability to strategize and use tactics in a race. That is where he wins races from. And that comes into the whole big bubble of talent and the umbrella of talent. But as a specific point, it's not you can go fast on a motorbike. It's you can go fast on a motorbike, not as fast as maybe Jorge Martin, but you make it all up and more in the way you can strategize and use tactics within your race to beat absolutely everybody and win 2 MotoGP World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, Pecco's fantastic on the brakes.
Yeah.
That's what everyone talks about when you see him, and he's made some mad moves, like round the outside and all.
Talent and that stuff.
Taking 2 riders in one corner.
And the outside,
it's
yeah,
mad.
that was unreal.
Like he tried it, Thailand last year, didn't work, tried it again this year, boom, no problem. He's mad on the brakes. People have been out breaking him this year. Pedro Costa is one that comes to mind. It's now, is the question, is Pecco Bagnaia actually the best on the brakes in MotoGP? Maybe not anymore. Maybe people are sort of starting to read into it and see.
I heard, it could be wrong, but I heard in the comments that Marc Marquez was the best at the Ducati and the brakes now.
There you go.
Which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I feel like I heard that too, but
I think it was Gavin Emmett who said it on BT.
Yeah, I would trust Gavin Emmett's opinion on things.
I would trust Gavin Emmett's opinion with my life, to be honest.
Yeah, he told me to jump off a bridge. I'd be like, okay.
I'd be like, yeah, it'd be safe, all right.
No problem.
Yeah, but that's it. And the big pins of Marquez, Martin, and Bastianini, sorry, have all dropped. I was trying to say Pedro Costa, but it's an obvious one who's always going to KTM. That was just no doubt, absolutely no doubt, have all dropped. And so now it's a case of, well, obviously Bastianini's yet to be officially confirmed. Then it's a case of musical chairs of Mir, who might retire, and you've got Vinales, who's in the media at the moment because reportedly, according to Richard Hove, has said he will not ride for Aprilia next year. And that goes back a few years as well to Honda offering him 10 million euros to ride for them. So maybe Vinales could be off to Honda next year, leaving another Aprilia seat open, which is very interesting.
Ooh.
And then maybe that gives Ralph Fernandez an Aprilia factory ride, giving Joe Roberts a seat in MotoGP.
Yeah, I'd actually really like to see Enea Bastianini on the other Aprilia seat, but based on
me too.
Conversation that's happened, I do think the contract is pretty much all but signed with KTM.
That's from Carlo Pernat, is the whole KTM thing, which is his manager.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid source. But in the same way, Aprilia having Martin and Bastianini on their factory bike would be amazing.
I think that's how you could figure out if the bike and the riders are good enough to be battling for championships. I think that answers all the questions there and then. And Aprilia have said they'd love to have an Italian on their bike. So I don't think Maverick Vinales is probably as safe as he maybe wants to be.
Especially not when he's winning a race and then disappearing again.
Exactly.
As he does so well. You know, that'd be a very interesting one. Aleix Espargaro, another one, has spoken to Yamaha about being a test rider. His fee was too high, so he will not be Yamaha's test rider. He could be Honda's.
I'm raging about that if that's legit.
That's what I heard. Again,
I really
always
wanted,
take this with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, since Aleix announced his retirement as a Yamaha fan, can't believe I'm using that word. I want to see Yamaha doing well again. I've always grown
Yeah.
up liking Yamaha.
Make Yamaha great again.
Exactly. Obviously, I want to see Honda be good too, because I want all manufacturers to be able to fight for a championship. That would be the ideal dream scenario. I thought Elise and Yamaha would go well together. Funny because Elise and Maverick are very similar, and obviously Maverick ended up falling out with Yamaha. So maybe Honda would make more sense for Elise then, but just with how good he is at developing a bike for my...
Honda would afford him. They've saved 25 million a year on Marquez.
They'll pay for anything.
Yeah, they would. That's the thing. Depends how much Repsol are not paying them next year.
They're gonna robot generate a new Marc Marquez and put that on the bike next year.
They're gonna build a robot. Yeah, I mean, we could still see Repsol in MotoGP. Maybe a Repsol Ducati next year.
Yeah. Good.
That would be wild.
Would be unbelievable.
Yeah, that would be nuts. But there is a lot going on. I'm just trying to think of any other things I've heard.
We should do that too, actually, because I've seen a few different takes on the 2025 grid. None I've agreed with.
Yeah, I saw a few actually the other day.
There's been a few on Twitter, seen a few on Facebook. We've spoken about a few in our own wee group chat with me, you and Cameron in it. We've sent a few in and sort of been like, not really agreeing with that one.
No. Yeah.
Not to call people out, but...
No, of course not.
I think everyone has very differing opinions on how next year is going to turn out. And who's right, who knows?
Yeah, we have no idea. No one... I don't think anyone's 100% right, of course, but... Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, actually, because the only confirmed riders and teams are Quartararo, Marini, Bagnaia, Binder, Acosta, Marc Marquez, Zarco, and Martin, with Aldeguer being another one that's up in the air because he's confirmed as a rider, but not where he's going to ride.
Yeah.
So, because at the end of the day, if Ducati can't find him a spot, they might be like, right, we'll keep you in Moto2 for another year. Under a Ducati contract, we'll pay you what you need to be paid with a confirmation of a Ducati seat next year.
Yeah.
That's always a chance. I mean, Fermin Aldeguer, he signed for Ducati next year, or with Ducati. There will be a clause in his contract that says, if you don't perform this well in Moto2 this year, we can end this contract before you jump into MotoGP.
Yeah, there's always going to be a clause for both rider and team.
So that's also something there. Obviously, I'd love to see Fermin in MotoGP, of course. I wouldn't want that to happen. But there's still so much to go, and Mir's a big question mark. Marini's already confirmed for next year, as I've said. So Mir's question mark. I'll just go through the list quickly of riders who aren't confirmed for next year. Let's have a look quickly. So riders not confirmed for next year are, I can give you some information, Vinales, of course. Aleix Espargaro's retired. Miguel Oliveira is out of contract. Ralph Fernandez is on a 2+2 deal, so he comes to the end of his first two and may be able to sign a 2-year deal again with Aprilia, dependent on results. Obviously, Bagnaia is signed. Enea Bastianini will be going likely to Gas. Franco Morbidelli has not got a ride for next year. Martin has at Aprilia. Alex Marquez not got a seat. Marc Marquez factory Ducati. Fabio Digia, no seat. Bezzecchi hasn't got a seat. Zarco obviously is confirmed with LCR Honda. Nakagami out of a seat. Marini confirmed. Mir out of a seat. Acosta confirmed to factory. Augusto Fernandez out of a seat. Binder, factory KTM. Miller out of a seat. Quartararo confirmed with Yamaha, and Rins is also out of a seat.
Rins will stay.
Yeah, Rins will 100% stay at Yamaha.
I think they're looking at the long game.
Yeah, I mean, they're testing in Valencia tomorrow and today. Yeah, tomorrow and Wednesday, so...
Yeah, I mean...
With Rins.
Yeah, I think with the fact that Fabio signed a long contract, I'd say they're going to want to keep Alex Rins and eyes on 2027.
Yeah, I agree.
With two very experienced riders.
Yeah, Rins wouldn't have signed with Yamaha if it was going to be a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
No chance. He would have been there. He's there to... It sounds horrible what I'm about to say. Rins is not going to win a MotoGP World Championship. So
No,
he's now
I doubt
there
it, yeah.
to earn a load of money in a factory squad with a chance of winning a few races in a few years and become the hero like Aleix was at Aprilia when he turns the whole thing around.
Not everyone can win world championships, though.
No.
A lot of people have been saying that controversially too. I don't think so-and-so will move to this team and win world championships. 99% of that grid is not going to win a world championship.
You can only have one world champion.
Like, Mir being an anomaly, Quartararo turning out to be an anomaly. You know, Pecco's won 2. That could be it for him.
That's it. Like,
you know,
you look at the champions in the years. You know, Stoner, the most naturally gifted rider I think many of us have ever seen. He's got 2.
Yeah.
He's only in what's it called? Upside down commas. Can't remember what it's called. Only got 2 championships.
Yeah.
You know, Nicky Hayden won a title, never won another one. You know, you look back. I'm just trying to think now. Danny Pedrosa never won a championship. In 2012, he scored, off the top of my head, it was like 318 points or something like that. That would have won you a championship in most years, and he still came second.
Yeah, and nowadays everyone's going, oh, Danny Pedrosa, GOAT, this, that, and the other. I'm like, you didn't think that when he retired.
Yeah. Oh, the amount of hate Danny used to get. Mental. But, you know, Dovi never won a championship. Again, exceptional rider. They don't give them out for free. Valentino Rossi won 9. At 29, I think he won his 9th title. Never won another one.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It was either early 30s, like 31, or he's 29. Never won another one. You know, and yet he raced for 10, 15 years after that title.
Well, yeah,
you know,
2020?
2009.
2009 was his last.
Yeah, and he retired in 2021.
So, come on.
Yeah, 12 years. You know, most people aren't going to win a title. And so, you know, so when riders like Bagnaia win a title, it is an exceptional achievement at the end of the day. Like I said about Bagnaia not being as talented, but I'm talking micro percentages when I say about not being as talented, because he's won 2 championships after all.
Yeah, but when you actually think of the game of like percentages, the chances of Jorge Martin moving to Aprilia and winning the championship, it's a very small...
It's like less than 5%.
chance. So obviously it's like, whoa, I don't know.
That's it. And it's not that he can't win the title, but there's just 24 other people on the grid trying to do the same thing.
But the thing is, Marc Marquez on the factory Ducati, although a lot of people will go, yeah, championship in the bag, again, the chances for him are the same as Martin going to Aprilia and winning that championship.
Well, we all said at the start of this year, yeah, Marquez's title, that's it. When he smiled at testing last year, and we're like, yeah, Marquez. And he's still learning it, to be fair. And he's still coming the championship. It's a long season. But he gave that grid and everyone went, yep, that's your champion right there. And he's 3rd, which is exceptional.
Yeah.
But he's not won a race yet.
No.
So you just never know, really. I don't really know what we're on about at the moment.
No, I don't really know how that came up, but yeah. This whole thing of like people saying so-and-so will never win a championship, I don't think that's a bad thing to say that.
No.
I think it's being realistic, and at the end of the day, there can only be one winner. The chances of it being whoever, we could literally use every single rider on the grid for an example. They've all got the same amount of odds to win it. A Honda could go and bloody win the championship.
Yeah, it just depends on rider and how good the bike is, really.
Exactly.
That give you an advantage, but you still got to go out and ride it.
Most riders on that grid will not win a MotoGP World Championship.
No, absolutely not. You got to think about how many riders in history have raced in MotoGP and how many have actually won the title. You got to think, right, I'm not going to do the actual maths, but MotoGP era started in 2002, was it?
Yeah.
2001, 2002?
2002.
2002. So It started in 2002. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different champions. 8. With that being Valentino Rossi, Nicky Hayden, Casey Stoner, Lorenzo, Marc Marquez, Mir Quartararo, Bagnaia. 8.
And that's in
Mental.
what, 22 years?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
And so many riders have gone through MotoGP. Yeah, mad. I didn't really know what we're ranting about or who we're ranting at, but
sorry.
it's because of Rins, people saying he's not going to win a championship.
Oh, yeah.
Because I said Rins won't win a championship, and it's true. He probably won't, but he'll earn a load of money. It's like Zarco. Zarco leaving Pramac to go to LCR. People are like, oh, what's he doing? He's thrown his career away. It's like, bro, he's going to retire at the end of next year, and he's earning double his Pramac salary at LCR Honda. Like, I don't blame him, to be honest.
Yeah, I do.
No, same. But yeah, I don't really know what we're on about now, but those are the silly season talks and the roundup so far. I think we should do a riders rating next weekend.
Yeah, let's actually. Do you know those ones where it's like the wee picture grids?
Yeah.
And then
we'll
we can post it too later after the podcast is out.
Yeah, I'll do that.
A wee tier list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for it. Right, I think, and shall I include some legends in that or just current riders?
I think the current 2024 grid. I mean, we could probably spend hours going.
Yeah,
I think big conversations been had. Definitely in the last, this year, I think we've had this conversation so many times now with different sort of takes on it every time. So I think the 2024 grid.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Right, I think that's all we've got time for.
I mean, I didn't think we were going to get to an hour, and here we are at an hour and 7 minutes. So
we're 5 minutes into it, and I was like, oh, God.
Yeah, this is going to be a painful one.
Yeah, but we did it. We managed it. As always.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for listening to this podcast. We're back next weekend with a tier list. I hope you enjoy that one. We won't be as controversial for clicks. Don't worry. We're just going to be honest. We're never controversial to clicks.
No,
Sorry,
no.
I got the wrong page there. Anyway, moving on. Thank you for listening, and we're back next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.